Hi, what's up, everybody? We got the Super Regionals in the college baseball tournament starting tomorrow. And who better to get back to break down these matchups and get ready for the round of 16? 2 out of 3 all over the country. We got some exciting matchups. We're going to be joined by Kyle Peterson, KP, my favorite college baseball analyst in the game. And we're going to run through these matchups. KP, how are you?
Hi, buddy. Good to talk to you again. I'm well.
Heck yeah, man. So you are in Chapel Hill for West Virginia, North Carolina, I believe.
I am here. Yeah.
Well, that's a fun place to start because that Carolina LSU Chapel Hill regional, man, the drama in that game on Monday with Carolina coming back in the ninth with 2 outs and then scoring in the 10th to win. I thought that was the best. That was just unbelievable theater last week.
Yeah, and kind of the whole weekend. LSU gets beat, comes back, gets it to a game 7, and then it's at the time I think the only game going on in the country. Maybe at the end, the Oklahoma game had started, but we were talking to Scott Forbes today, and some of the kids from North Carolina, and all of them said, we've never had an environment like that in Chapel Hill, and I think obviously LSU brings a different vibe everywhere they go. And it's a little bit different than anybody else that's going to come in here in the ACC. But I think North Carolina showed you why. Honestly, they've been one of the most consistent, best teams in the country the entire season. They're good, man. They're deep.
No, they are, and they can hit. I was really impressed with the depth of that lineup. I mean, everybody knows about Vance Honeycutt, who one of the top players in the country. But man, they got their 7-hole hitter, 8-hole hitter in like 350. And they were, the ACC champions. The ACC was loaded this year. So kind of one of those things, heartbreaking for LSU, but they just won the national championship. So that's probably going to ease their pain.
Yeah. No, and listen, I mean, if you want to look at LSU's season realistically, like they were 3-12 to start the SEC. I mean, the fact that they got to that point, and Scott said it when we were talking today, he's like, LSU's a top 10 team right now. No, I know they may not have been for part of the season, but that's a hell of a run to get from where we were to, being a swing away from going to supers again. But it is cool to see North Carolina back in it. Late 90s, early 2000s, they were there. I mean, they were in Omaha, it seemed like every year. A little bit of a break. They got the type of team that honestly win.
Yeah, I remember the heartbreaking when they lost that national championship to Oregon State. I remember that very well because I remember they had bad fielding here. We'll touch on West Virginia, North Carolina. North Carolina, a pretty solid favorite in this, but West Virginia, their coach retiring. They got a first-round pick in J.J. Weatherholt, I believe, and they got a lot of momentum. I mean, they went out to Arizona, which was a tough regional with Arizona, the best team in the Pac-12, and then a lot of people, including myself, love Dallas Baptist, and they ran right through that regional. They're kind of playing with nothing to lose. They're playing for their coach, and do you think they have a shot in the Super?
Yeah, they got a real shot. I mean, Randy Mazey said today when we talked to him, we're going to go hang out with him here in a little bit, but he's like, man, we went to a regional, we played a 4 seed and a 4 seed to get through, and you still got to beat him. And Grand Canyon was probably the best 4 seed out there, but the reality is there's not that many times you win a regional and you avoid the 1 seed the entire time, and they did. So some of it is, hey, win and figure out who you're going to play next. But I mean, they went 19-11 in the Big 12. So it's a team that was pretty damn consistent the entire year, and they had a really good weekend in Tucson. I think they come in here, they're older. They're not going to be wowed by the surroundings. It's going to be louder here than it was at Tucson, especially in the games they play because they didn't play Arizona. But no, man, they'll show up. It wouldn't shock me if this one goes 3.
All right, we're going to run through the Super Regionals, 8 of them around the country. UConn at Florida State starting this out, 11 a.m. Central tomorrow. I got to get, people are talking and asking, is UConn a baseball school? Everybody talks about the basketball and they've won back-to-back national titles, but, I feel like every year in the last few years in the tournament, last year they won the regional in Maryland. And this year, I mean, you're talking about going into a regional with Oklahoma. Many people thought the best team in the Big 12 and a Duke team that red hot and had just won the ACC. And UConn ran right through that thing. They almost made it to Omaha last year. And, once again, they're like 100-1 to win the title right now. And they're a big underdog. And I get it, rightfully so, at Florida State with Jamie Arnold pitching and Florida State being good. But shout out to the Huskies. I mean, I feel like every year, you see them in the bracket and you don't take them seriously, and the next thing you know, they're right, with the shot to Omaha.
I think that regional was as tough as any. I mean, the four is Oral Roberts, which is different than the Oral Roberts team from last year, but still, the team last year went to the College World Series. Um, Duke's loaded. I thought Duke was the team that would get out of there, and OU was on a hell of a run going into it. So you come out of that one, yeah, you're going to turn the heads of everybody. I mean, UConn, Jim Penders has done. Kendall wrote a story on him, D1. I think it was last week. He's done about as good a job as anybody in the country as far as building a program in an area that you wouldn't really know you could build a program. I mean, UConn's been to three supers. There's some pretty good programs that haven't been to three supers in the last 10 years. UConn has. And they're doing it with older kids that kind of look like a bunch of linebackers, which is not a bad thing. But they can come out and physical anybody. And that ballpark can play really small in Florida State, especially to right. So, yeah, I mean, it's advantage Florida State, and Jamie Arnold's been as good as anybody in the country, and Florida State can really bang. But it wouldn't surprise me if UConn is if UConn's scoring some runs against everybody, maybe except Arnold. I think that's going to be a tough task.
Yeah, that's the one thing about this. I definitely don't write UConn off, but it's going to be awful tough to beat Jamie Arnold in game one, and then there's going to be a ton of pressure on him in games 2 and 3. But shout out to Link Jarrett. He's in his second year at Florida State, did a spectacular job at Notre Dame. Beat the what many people felt was the best college team we've seen in a long time at Tennessee in that Super 2 years ago, and he went back home to Florida State, and look what he's doing in year 2. I mean, they've been elite all year long, no doubt.
I mean,
so. That should be interesting.
They didn't make the ACC tournament last year. Like, forget about the NCAA tournament. They didn't make the ACC tournament last year. And now in 1 year, with a few transfers, but a lot of guys that had been there, the following year, they're a top 8 national seed and they're playing at home to go to Omaha. That's Link's done a hell of a job everywhere he's gone, but that's a quick spin in Tallahassee.
Yeah. Evansville, one of the stories of the tournament, the 4 seed. Talk about shocking. I mean, you looked at that East Carolina Wake regional. You know how hard it is to win in the jungle. Wake almost made the national championship last year. And Evansville, the most impressive thing they did, the win in that game, the last game on Monday, in that hostile environment, to win a 1-run game at East Carolina, I'm not going to lie, I was shocked by it. I kept thinking going into the 9th even, I was like, East Carolina's going to come back here. And now talk about a team with nothing to lose out of the Missouri Valley. They're plus 800 to win the Super at Tennessee. Tennessee, the number 1 overall seed, 50 wins regular season, and won the SEC tourney, outright SEC champion. And they'll be ready, especially off what happened 2 years ago at home against Notre Dame. Is there any shot Evansville has it all in this Super Regional?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a shot just because it's baseball. I saw the kind of the win percentages as far as series to come out, and I think this one was like 78% Tennessee. So theoretically, if you played 5 times, Evansville wins it once. And hell, who knows? Maybe this is the once. I mean, maybe this is the weekend.
If they win 1 out of 5 and it's 8-1, that's not. I've heard worse odds. Kansas State surprised a lot of people running right through that Fayetteville regional. When you look back on the stuff that was so surprising last week, I honestly felt bad for Hagen Smith. At Arkansas, he was the best pitcher all year. He'd allowed 5 runs in his last 7 starts total, and he allowed 6 runs in the 5th. He just kind of, came apart at the absolute wrong time in the NCAA tourney. And K-State kind of similar to West Virginia. You look at them not like a traditional baseball power, but playing with nothing to lose. They got momentum and taking on a Virginia team that can really hit and, has a good Omaha pedigree. Feels like they're in that Omaha mix year after year. This kind of reminds me, it's similar to the West Virginia, North Carolina series with the Big 12 ACC thing. Do you think Kansas State has a shot?
Yeah, they really have a shot. I think, first of all, if you go beat Arkansas and Hagen Smith's on the mound, you can beat anybody. Because nobody else did that at Arkansas this year. And the other thing is, I mean, just to hang around and you watch SEMO knock out Arkansas and not to let down after that point and finish the deal. Kalen Culpepper's a big leaguer for K-State. He hit the cycle game 1 in the regional. He hit a home run against Arkansas off of Hagen Smith. But you're watching a big leaguer with him. I mean, I saw K-State earlier this year down in Jacksonville. They've got pieces and they've got enough to go in and win, but they're facing a really different team than they faced when they beat Arkansas. Like Virginia, and you just said it, is offense. They pitch it enough but it's as balanced and deep of an offense as there is in the entire country. And so, I mean, it kind of feels like if you're K-State, you have to have a weekend where they hit it at somebody. And Virginia's not hitting a lot of home runs, which they can. You got to keep in the ballpark against them because that's an offense that can jump ship on you really quick. And when they get going, man, they can run away and hide. And that's I think if you're K-State, that's the one thing you got to be worried about.
Yeah, just K-State. How's their pitching depth?
They're fine. They're fine. I mean, I think what they did down there, Arkansas doesn't have a great offense, but still, from a K-State standpoint, um, they did fine. And if they have the lead late, I mean, they got one of the best closers in the country in Tyson Neighbors. So if it's tight or if they have the lead late, you're going to see Neighbors that looks like big league stuff when he comes in. And that's the one thing to watch. If they've got the lead, they got a real chance because there's not a lot of teams that have big time closers this year. It's been closer by committee for a lot of the bigger teams, not K-State. The end of the game, you know who's going to get the ball, and if Neighbors is in there, they got a real chance.
All right. Well, I feel like there's either K-State or West Virginia could pull something off. I kind of think when you look at those two supers. Then going to Athens, Georgia, the matchup I'm super starred in on because I'm real big on my NC State 35-1 future bet I placed on DraftKings before this tourney. Georgia's a slight favorite. They're not a big favorite in the super. Obviously, Charlie Condon, one of the greatest seasons of all time, hitting 440 with 35 bombs. Georgia can really hit it. But, I love this North Carolina State team. Got a lot of bullpen guys that can throw mid to high 90s, three solid starters. They can hit. They got through a really tough ACC. So, I'm feeling kind of optimistic about this, but I think this feels like it could go 3 games and be a heck of a super.
No, I totally agree. I think your point about NC State is dead on to where they probably have more depth on the mound than anybody that's left in this tournament. And you may need it when you go to Georgia because I don't think you're holding that offense down for 3 straight days. They're going to get going at some point. And it's just whether or not NC State can go punch for punch in those games. But the staff that NC State has, and honestly the road, I mean, shit, their second half of the season, they were playing about as well as anybody in the country. And you show up at a Georgia place that even if you're not, a team that's hit a ton of home runs over the course of the season, that ballpark can make you feel pretty good about yourself if you're hitting. It'll go there. So I'm with you. I think this is probably the most even matchup for me of any of the supers that are out there. And I'd be really surprised if it doesn't go 3.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. That one's starting Saturday, 11 a.m. The NC State one's, that's the one I'm paying the most attention to because of that futures bet.
Well, it's because you bet them.
Of course. Well, look, if Ole Miss is long gone, so that's the beauty of having gambling lines now in college baseball. It's it's a beautiful thing. Florida, boy, you got to give them, man, just so much credit. I mean, they one game over 500, snuck in the tournament. Stillwater, Oklahoma, a very hard place to go win. They had to beat Nebraska's ace. And they had to come back out of the losers. They lost the Saturday game and had to come all the way back. And they had a freshman go out there Monday. I know you were there in Stillwater for that.
Yeah.
And man, I just, with the season they had, you just got to give them a ton of credit for going in there and winning in Stillwater. And they're not too big of an underdog at Clemson. And Eric Bakich, almost won a national title at Michigan of all places. And he's doing, great things at Clemson his second year. They're the number 6 national seed. But I kind of feel like, can't count Florida out here.
Oh, no. I mean, it's kind of like LSU last weekend. Like, it's still the talent is still there for Florida. Florida just needed their arms to grow up over the course of the year. They pitched so many freshmen, which they usually don't have to do, but they did this year. And so you're going to take lumps, and they took lumps. And I think it was one of those situations to where it was like, just get us into the postseason and let us start the season over. And at that point, you had kids grow up. I mean, the first 17 outs they got in the game 7 of the regional final were all from freshmen. They went freshman to start it. And then Fisher Jameson, who's a legit walk-on, came on and got the last 10 outs. Like that's how Florida got to supers. Freshman, walk-on the mound. And they shut down one of the better offenses in the entire country. So because of that, I think it gives them a real chance. And they're 1-2. Like Liam Peterson has grown into an ace. And Caglione can still go out and dominate anybody from the left side. So that's who if you're Clemson, that's who you got to face. From a Clemson standpoint, I do like the length in their lineup. I had him at Wake earlier this year. I had him against Chase Burns, which, I mean, anybody's going to have a hard day against Chase. But I like the length. I do like the freshman Aiden Kanak. has been their best arm from a starting standpoint, and they're going to need him to be good this weekend. I would kind of put this along the lines of that NC State Georgia, to where I think those two are probably the two kind of most evenly matched up teams. I know that Clemson, on paper had a significantly better year, and obviously they get a chance to play at home. But if you watch Florida play last weekend, that's kind of the Florida team you thought you'd see the whole year, and that's the team that honestly can beat anybody any day.
Yeah, and that's the odds makers always tell you a lot too. And Clemson is like minus $1.75, not like a huge favorite for a 6 seed against a team, the national seed against a team that barely got in the tourney.
Right.
And so it certainly looks like they're giving Florida a chance. And for those of you that don't follow college baseball as closely, Jack Caglione for Florida, just unbelievable, both two-way player. One of the best hitters in the country and an amazing pitcher. So he's one of the superstars of the tourney. So keep your eye on him. 2 super regionals left to touch on. The Oregon Ducks went to Cal Santa Barbara, got it done. They almost made it to Omaha last year. They kind of blew that Oral Roberts game 3. Not many people giving them much of a shot in College Station against the Texas A&M team that, the game of that regional was the Saturday night Texas game that they won in extra innings. But kudos to them. They were able to find a way and pull that off. Kyle, KP, I thought they were going to have to stop the game. There were so many bubbles on the field during that game. I mean, it's like a wild scene watching it on TV. Like, I feel like it would be distracting if you were hitting. It's or pitching. It's so crazy. But that's that environment they have in College Station. And, A&M, along with Tennessee, the 2 real favorites left in this tourney. My question on this one, Oregon, pretty good, and they definitely can hit. But do they have enough pitching here? Because A&M's lineup has, 4 or 5 first-round picks?
Yeah, I don't know that anybody has enough pitching against A&M in that ballpark. I mean, you give yourself a chance if you go to Omaha just because the ballparks can play a little bit different, but they love playing at home and they love hitting at home. Their 1-2-3 is as good as you're going to see in the country. Yeah, to your point. I mean, Braden Montgomery's a first rounder this year. Lavalette's a first rounder next year. Grohovac's probably a first rounder the following year. That's your 1-2-3 in A&M's lineup. And then what they did, and this is what I really like, is they went out and got some older guys. They got Jimmy Obertop, who had been at Michigan for a while. They got 2 Ivy League transfers that hit 4 and 6 in that lineup. They went and got a transfer from Northridge, Alec Camarillo, that's playing short for them. That's actually turned into a pretty good offensive player, but he can really defend. They're loaded, and they throw enough strikes. It's definitely not the best pitching staff in the country or that's left in the field, but it's enough. And they throw plenty of strikes. From an Oregon standpoint, I think your comment about what happened last year is big. I mean, it was at home, but the fact that a lot of these guys have been in this situation now, they haven't been in the situation they're walking into. Santa Barbara's cool, don't get me wrong. Bluebell Park is a little bit different environment than playing at Santa Barbara. They'll show up and they'll be lubricated and they'll be ready to go. And I think that's the one thing that you can't really reproduce if you're Oregon, is the environment you're going to walk into if A&M gets going. That's the biggest thing. I mean, if you could stop them from getting going, then you keep the crowd out of it, great. But if that crowd gets into it, man, that place is about as tough to play as anywhere in the country right now.
Yeah, and also a little bit of a weird observation, but Oregon, a little different climate than a 1 p.m. game in College Station, Texas in June. So they're going to be dealing with some heat maybe they're not used to too.
Yeah, no, it'll be. I mean, the good thing is if it's also the ball's going to fly, which is going to fly further than it does in Eugene and further than it does in Santa Barbara, although there was a fair amount of home runs hit in Santa Barbara. But no, I mean, I'm sure if you're A&M, you're not afraid to have a 95-degree day, because that's normal to them, and it'll feel a little bit different from the boys northeast or northwest. But I think that one will be fun because there's only 2 Pac-12 teams left, and we'll talk about the other one next. But it'd be tough for me to see a College World Series this year when the Pac goes out without a Pac team in Omaha. It just feels like there needs to be one there.
Well, that transitions into the final super regional, and boy, the Vegas odds makers in this one they're telling me a lot. Kentucky is a very, very tiny favorite as number 2 national seed over number 15 seed Oregon State, and Oregon State certainly has a championship pedigree program. I believe they've won 3 titles, and I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a coin flip situation. Kentucky, obviously one of the best teams in the SEC, got off to that crazy 14-1 start, but I kind of feel like Oregon State may go in here and do this.
It definitely wouldn't shock me. I mean, you got Oregon State that, Omaha, I would say expectation may be a little bit heavy, but every year they're going to have a fighting chance to get there. And Kentucky is the only SEC team that's never been to the College World Series. This is the first time Kentucky's been in the postseason in back-to-back years, and they've been in supers each year. But still, think about that. I mean, it's a very vast difference when you look at baseball history on both sides. However, Kentucky's got a beautiful ballpark. They've built a real fan base. They're going to sell it out every night, and I think that's definitely going to benefit Kentucky. It'll be interesting because Kentucky forces you to play every component of the game. They're going to force you to defend. They're going to steal. They're going to bunt. They're going to hit and run. And Oregon State is a team that will be ready for that just because of where they come from. If you play on the West Coast, you see more of that stuff than you do in the SEC. And so I'm actually kind of interested just to see the chess match that happens within in both dugouts because both of them like to coach it up during the course of the game. The other thing for Oregon State, one of the best players in the country is Travis Pizzana, kid from Australia that's going to be a top 5 overall pick this year. Second baseman with 26, 27 home runs. Really, I mean, he's a big leaguer. He's going to play for a long time. So you get to see him in that environment. That fan base gets to see a guy that's going to play in the big leagues for a long time. If I had to pick somebody, I'd probably pick Oregon State, but it'd be thin because I do think that home crowd is going to make a big difference for Kentucky.
Well, that's the 8 Super Regionals. Of these, do you have any strong leans in any other? We kind of talked about NC State, Georgia. I know you said they have a good shot, and you mentioned K-State's got a shot. Do you have any kind of strong thoughts or anything on any of them?
I mean, I don't see Tennessee getting beat. I don't know what numbers are on that, but I don't see Tennessee getting beat on that. I do feel pretty good about Virginia. I know that K-State just went into the gauntlet, but they're just playing a really different type of team. They're playing a very offensive team, and I've seen Virginia a few different times this year, and I think that offense, if Virginia pitches it enough, Virginia for me is one of the favorites to win the whole thing. So if you're playing at home in a super, then I think you got a pretty good chance to win it. Those would be the two that I think, and A&M. I mean, A&M's in a great spot. They're a better team, and they're built for their place, and their people are going to show up. And even though it's a 1:00 game and it's going to be 90 whatever, that place will be jamming. So yeah, I'd say, I mean, my 3 that I go to right away are A&M, Virginia, Tennessee.
All right, there you have it. And KB, I always just appreciate you taking some time to catch up with us. Look for him calling the games in West Virginia, North Carolina, in Chapel Hill this weekend, and certainly will be all over his hometown of Omaha, Nebraska, the whole College World Series starting next Friday. And thanks again.
All right, bud. Good talking to you. See you next week.
Heck yeah, Kyle Peterson, and there's your NCAA Super Regional preview. And can't wait for these games to start tomorrow at 11 a.m. Thanks again to KP.